Hello and welcome to this module on integrating applications in Azure. In this module, we want to take a look at what it means to do integration and integrating applications in the cloud. Specifically, we'll dive into both messaging and workflow around integration, and we'll talk about some of the extended capabilities and requirements that go along with that. When I talk about integration, basically I'm talking about connecting systems and applications. That means being able to take your Azure application and connect it to your data center, or even just connecting a web application with an API, either yours or somebody else's. So connecting those systems, sharing data and logic. And while the definition is simple, as you know, if you've done this, often the implementation can get very complicated. Now in the cloud, when we talk about integrations, that may be an integration within a cloud. Again, using your own API from a web application, or exchanging messages between application nodes. We might also do cloud to data center integrations, where you either need to access data in your own data center, or you need to be able to send data and information to your data center. Could be that you're integrating between clouds. You've got an application in one cloud, either a region of Azure to another region in Azure, or from Azure to say an Amazon or a Google Cloud application as well. And of course, as is more and more common, you may have an application that you're deploying in the cloud and you need to integrate or connect to one or more software as a service applications in order to take advantage of their functionality, their business logic, or the data. One key component of most integrations is messaging, passing messages or data back and forth between nodes. And that's not to be confused with events, which are similar but different, and I'll elaborate. When we talk about messaging in Azure, one of the key services or capabilities we can use is the Azure Service Bus. The Service Bus is built to either do relayed messaging, where you have nodes talking to each other by relaying messages through the Service Bus, or brokered messaging, where a message gets sent to the Service Bus, where it can be queued up for delivery to one or more clients that are waiting for that message. There's a very rich publish and subscribe model in that brokered messaging subsystem. Event Grid, I talked about a little bit earlier, and this is a publish and subscribe event notification. Now you can argue over the semantics, but generally, when I think of events, the main purpose of the event is to let you know that something happened. The main purpose of a message is to pass data from one system to another. And so the event grid is focused on notifying you of events in your Azure infrastructure or in applications or in some other Azure services. So you might get an event that tells you that something happened in, say, blob storage, and then you may process that by going out to blob storage, doing something, and sending a message to another system. And we also have API management, which is a service that's all about helping you publish APIs, secure them, and manage them. This allows you to do things like create developer portal or documentation around APIs, allows you to create composite APIs so that you can define an API surface or an interface for clients that actually composes different operations or interactions with a variety of services on the back end. All that messaging often requires coordination or workflow, and that's where Azure Logic Apps come in. They provide an orchestration engine or workflow engine for all these different messaging interactions. They provide the control flow of what your process looks like between the different messages. You may start by getting an event from the event grid, but then what are the steps you take in your business process, and what other systems do you communicate with, in what order, and what do you do with the responses is all part of a workflow. So Logic Apps allows you to either visually, in most cases, or through some JSON, describe that workflow or that business process and very quickly and easily connect to hundreds of different types of systems in the Azure cloud, in other clouds or software as a service, and in your own data center. You can extend Logic Apps with an integration account. This is all about providing some of those specific features that you need with integration. Enterprise file formats, for example, which may seem like an oxymoron when I say things like comma-separated files or EDI documents, as those have been around forever, but they're very commonly used. You can do XML or JSON transformations using XSLT or liquid templates to translate between, say, an EDI file and JSON, or a CSV file and XML. And you get to manage your partners. So all the sorts of things like certificates, their endpoints that you need to talk to, defining the agreements between your organization and theirs, all are part of integration accounts. So you have schemas for different files you'll exchange, you have maps defined to do these transformations, you have agreements that tie it all together. And you can use all or some of these integration features inside your logic apps as you coordinate the different exchanges. We take a look at a couple of examples. One of my favorites is the service bus relay. You can imagine that these two servers here are in different data centers. One is in yours and one is in a partner organization's data center. And you need to be able to send messages between them. But as you could probably guess, they're both behind firewalls because that's just generally a good practice. The server on the left can't just reach out and connect to the server on the right, and vice versa. And that's where Service Bus Relay comes in as a cloud-based relay point for both of these servers. My server, or your server in your data center, can go out through the firewall with an outbound connection and connect to the service bus. And the partner server can also reach out to that service bus going outbound through the firewall. And now we have a secure tunnel that we can pass messages between these two application servers. And those messages can be secured end-to-end so that they're readable only by the recipient on the other side and not in between by the service bus or anything else that might try and interfere. So this is a great tool for allowing you to connect those systems across the internet and deal with some of the very troublesome connection issues that come up in a real-life scenario. Likewise, you could replace the relay in this with a queue or topic in the service bus and make this a brokered scenario as opposed to a real-time connection where the message would sit out on the service bus until the client has the ability to go out and pull it down and process it. Another example is you may have a logic app with your integration account in order to do some processing. Let's say you do receive that EDI file over, say, a secure FTP connection and kick off your workflow or your logic app along with your integration account. The integration account has definitions for that EDI document in terms of a schema. And now you could take that schema, maybe apply a map to it to get some XML and use a custom connector in Logic Apps to send it to one of your own internal systems that may not have a built-in connector. Although there are hundreds of connectors, so chances are good there's one for whatever system you're talking to. You can also take that document and do a different type of transformation and turn it into a JSON document and send it maybe to a software as a service provider or some other endpoint over HTTPS. So the Logic app coordinates those steps, whether they happen in sequence or in parallel, whether the response from one dictates what happens to the other, can all be controlled in that workflow that you've set up. So with integration, really looking at connecting systems, and that involves messaging. It often involves varied security and protocols, and messaging and workflow are the two key pieces here. Messaging being all about making those connections, passing the data securely, and workflow in the form of logic apps in Azure allows you to coordinate all those interactions. Additionally, those integration accounts extend those capabilities by providing you additional file formats that are supported, transformations, partner management, and other capabilities that become necessary when you're integrating with so many different systems. And with integration wrapped up, we can move on to networking in Azure.